my name is Lauren and welcome to the Theoretical YouTube channel where I'm talking about the Sensational 6 and ducks are finally irrelevant. Seriously, it has been 3 years since I started doing brief histories on Disney's Duck family and it is time to move on. Get it? Move on, because we're talking about a cow. But not just any cow. Today we're taking a look at one of the most important anthropomorphic cows of all time. Clarabelle the cow. AKA this gal, you've probably seen her around. Unless most of your Disney media was consumed between the decades of 1940 and 1980 because she was virtually erased from the franchise for a significant stretch of time. By insidious scandal or because she held a dark secret the company needed to hide? All salacious rumors and insipid gossip will be revealed in this episode of Unpacking the Sensational 6 EU with a brief history of Clarabelle the cow. So, the beginning of Clarabelle's existence in this universe is a bit murky or just not well defined, because, like with many early forms of classic Disney cartoon characters, it's hard to tell when a reoccurring animal takes the form of an established character. When does a random duck become Donald? When do dippy dogs qualify for startup and franchise potential? When does a cow mean more than a cow? Does she have to wear a skirt? Because I've never seen a real cow in a skirt and it just seems impractical. Well, the first cow in the Sensational 6 EU actually appeared before 4 of those 6 iconic characters. In fact, she appeared in the very first Mickey Mouse cartoon in 1928, and if any of you just whispered Steamboat Willie, I want you to know I'm personally offended. Plain Crazy, the real first cartoon to feature Mickey Mouse, also introduced us to his girlfriend Minnie and this unnamed cow. But it's hard to claim that this character definitively evolved into this character based solely on species. Not every dog is Pluto. Some of them are international pop stars that help you see eye to eye with your father. And some of them interrupt her filming schedule by scratching on the door. What makes this case particularly non-compelling is that this cow isn't nearly as anthropomorphized as Clarabelle would become, or even as evolved as Mickey and Minnie in the exact same short. This short introduced the world to 2 beloved new characters who would go on to change the face of animation and entertainment itself. I think it's a stretch to say that Disney also intended this cow to be the third, which likely means that the cow from Steamboat Willie is also a precursor to Clarabelle without actually being her, if that makes sense. Basically, these cows are generally regarded as having not enough personality to be classified as characters in their own right. So, when did Clarabelle actually make her debut on the silver screen? Well, that wouldn't be until a couple years later in 1930 with the premiere of The Shindig, another Mickey Mouse short that included another iconic cow. But this time, the cow has many more of the characteristics which would soon become associated with the reoccurring character of Clarabelle. For instance, she can walk on 2 legs, has more expressive features, wears clothing, and is generally more anthropomorphized than any previous iteration of the Disney cow design. This is also where she's first seen alongside Horace Horsecollar, who she'll be romantically tied to in a web of betrayal and love triangles for the rest of time. Both a quasi-precursor to Clarabelle and to Horace appeared in an earlier 1930 short, The Barnyard Concert, but there wasn't as strong of an implied romantic connection. Oh yeah, this guy, Horace, I hadn't heard of him before researching this video. But apparently he's been kicking around longer than many of the iconic characters that we do associate with the brand. Anyway, this is unquestionably Clarabelle, and many sources claim that this is her first official appearance in the canon. Will I disclose my sources? Of course not, because I'm staying true to the journalistic integrity of Disney's foremost gossip.
Remember, gossip is always true.
Right, because we talked about how much personality it takes to be classified as a real character, we should talk about the personality traits associated with Clarabelle. Clarabelle, and to a much lesser extent Horace Horsecollar, are defined by their social connection to Mickey and Minnie, as their inner circle of friends and, reoccurring characters who aren't enemies or outright villains. Instead of a menace, Clarabelle is a socialite. First and foremost, that has always been her principal role in the franchise, to expand the social circle in the House of Mouse. You see, before Daisy was created to tag alongside Minnie, Clarabelle was her de facto best friend.
What?
In the same way Horace filled out Mickey's pals before the creation of Donald or Goofy, Clarabelle was central to any social narrative involving Minnie. Going back to that first appearance in the Shindig, it's important to note that the Shindig is a barn dance, a party, a gathering amongst friends. So with an origin so directly tied to the social circle of Disney's most exclusive pair, it's no surprise to see how Clarabelle's personality has been shaped by her role as a socialite. Clarabelle is vain and uptight and deeply interested in the personal lives of those around her.
I make your business my business.
Especially her friends. She's often depicted as a notorious gossip, particularly in the House of Mouse TV show where she actually runs a segment of gossip on a live television program.
Sources reveal Mickey and Minnie Mouse are dating.
Well, everybody already knows that.
Which ultimately comes back to bite her in episodes like Thanks to Minnie and Clarabelle's Big Secret. She's coded as an upper class character who's often wearing nice clothing and jewelry, which is a surprising departure from Disney's MO of everyman stand-ins. Obviously Scrooge is another exception, but Mickey, Donald, Daisy, Goofy, Minnie, they're all created in a way to be relatable in a fashion that Clarabelle has not been and will likely never be. Sure, she can be sympathetic and kind and generally a good person, or cow, but her tendency to collect and spread rumors about her closest friends makes her a difficult character to exactly call a role model.
I hold in my hand the biggest secret this town has never heard.
She can also be characterized as ditzy, clumsy, oblivious, and obnoxious.
This is all because of my flies, isn't it?
Of course, most of these characteristics wouldn't come about until Clarabelle was reintroduced to the franchise in the late 20th century. From her conception in the 30s to her mysterious disappearance in the 40s, she was actually a pretty popular character who popped up all the time alongside Horace Horsecollar, mostly in social settings like double dates with Mickey and Minnie. She also played prominent roles in shorts like 1935's The Band Concert, which is famously the first color Mickey Mouse short, and in 1934's Orphan's Benefit, which also included an early depiction of Donald. But the mid-1930s also brought along the introduction of new characters destined to skyrocket into fame, like Donald and eventually Goofy. And with new faces beginning to populate Mickey's social crowd, there was less need to include Horace as his best friend, which in turn affected Clarabelle's power as a mainstay in the franchise. Instead of simply expanding the social circle, these new members of the forming Sensational Six actually pushed Clarabelle and Horace out of their roles. They appeared in less and less roles until they largely became irrelevant to the growing Disney canon. Clarabelle was brought back for the 1941 remake of Orphan's Benefit in color, but it was also her first appearance in years. And then she failed to make it past the post-World War II transition away from theatrical cartoons. Where she might make a few comic appearances here and there, it would largely appear that Clarabelle the Cow would be a classic Disney character left behind in the golden age of cartoons. Until along came Mickey's A Christmas Carol in 1983, where both she and Horace appeared in what I'm starting to think was the peak of cinematic cameo history, Fezziwig's Party.
Why, it's old Fezziwig himself!
Seriously, this scene has been a major talking point in at least 4 of these videos. Anyway, dancing at this party, again another social event, was the first on-screen appearance of Clarabelle since she had been pushed out of the limelight in the 1940s. And while this was just a quick cameo, it was also a sign that she hadn't entirely been left behind in a bygone era. Because Clarabelle began to make more frequent television appearances for one significant reason. She was reintroduced as Goofy's love interest. A twist! And not just idle gossip either. While Clarabelle is still often associated with Horace Horsecollar,
Hey, Clarabelle! The stud's here to see ya!
Horace Horsecollar.
she has also been romantically tied to Goofy on a number of occasions. In fact, some of their first romantic inklings were hinted at all the way back in Orphan's Benefit, one of the most significant Clarabelle cartoons. Of course, orphans' benefit still had her closely tied to Horace, thus resulting in more of a love triangle situation. It wasn't really until 1990 in the film The Princess and the Pauper where Clarabelle and Horace began to really diverge in the greater narrative. Both characters appear in the film, but Horace has a significantly bigger role, and Clarabelle doesn't have anything to do with him. In 1999, they both appear in a couple background shots of Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, but it's kind of a blink and you miss it deal here. Because from 1999 on, Clarabelle began to carve herself a place in the franchise without Horace. She was once again part of Minnie's social circle, worming her way in beside Daisy as a close friend, which naturally balances out Mickey and Minnie's closest confidants. Because Mickey had both Donald and Goofy, it just makes sense that Minnie would be written to have a second left-hand gal. And possibly because she was reintroduced in order to balance him out, this is also when Disney began pushing her closer to Goofy. In shows like Mickey Mouse Works and House of Mouse, Clarabelle made frequent appearances as both a close friend of Minnie and a romantic interest for Goofy. These shows also really fleshed out Clarabelle's personality, especially House of Mouse, where her tendency towards gossip flourished.
Someone will never work in this town again!
Of course, as sort of a meta reading here, I think one reason that she was written as such an annoying busybody is so that the rest of the social circle couldn't entirely trust her. After all, this is a character who had a history in the franchise but hadn't been included as a friend for decades. Making her a notorious gossip provides an excuse for keeping her a little bit distant from the rest of the group. Furthermore, in 2004, we have The Three Musketeers, where she spends a significant portion of the film as an outright villain.
I'm going to drop you screaming off this bridge!
It's only after falling in love with Goofy that Clarabelle switches sides and becomes one of the heroes. After this, Clarabelle would continue to be a regular friend to the Sensational Six, often tied to Goofy, but not in the best friend role she started in. And just to round out the history here, the rest all follows the same pattern. Clarabelle continued to appear on television shows like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and all associated spin-offs as part of Minnie's social circle. She's been in a couple of the newer Mickey Mouse shorts, and makes some appearances in both Kingdom Hearts and the Epic Mickey games. Granted, Horace has a much bigger video game presence. Clarabelle goes back and forth from being a girlfriend to both Horace and Goofy depending on the depiction. Sometimes we get back into that love triangle territory, but most of the time the narrative just completely ignores that her romantic ties haven't been set in stone since the 1940s. One very notable appearance of Clarabelle was in 2013's Get a Horse, the short that premiered before the Disney movie Frozen. Maybe you've heard of that. Get a Horse is so complicated and weird that I'm considering making a whole video on just that short. But in essence, it takes place in a golden age of cartoons, before color, before full-length animated movies, and before the Sensational Six. Okay, technically before Donald, Daisy, Goofy, and Pluto, but that's like 60% of the group. And yet, the short does feature both Horace Horsecollar and Clarabelle the Cow as prominent characters. A return to the old Disney status quo. In conclusion, Clarabelle the Cow is by far not the most fascinating Disney character with a torrid past or a salacious secret.
Yes, that's right. There just aren't any good secrets anymore. Not a single one, anywhere.
She's simply a character who started in a very prominent role and then lost the spotlight to newer popular faces. And then she was brought back decades later to serve as a romantic foil to the franchise's secondary male lead, or as a gal pal to its first lady. She's not really a villain, and she's not quite a close friend. And yet, depending on how you look at things, she's been there from the very beginning. In the first Mickey Mouse cartoon, in the first cartoon produced with sound, the first cartoon ever in Technicolor. Clarabelle's biggest secret is that she is not as interesting as the history she has borne witness to. And that's the greatest compliment for the world's most notorious gossip. Hey there, I hope you liked this video, and maybe now you know more than you did about one or two anthropomorphized cows. Also, I didn't really know where to fit this into my script, but Clarabelle has been voiced by two main voice actresses since her first speaking role. Elvia Allman from 1933 to 1990, and April Winchell from 1999 through the present. And technically she was voiced by Marshallite Garner in The Shindig, although that wasn't technically a speaking role yet. Anyway, if you did like this video, please subscribe to the channel or check out some of our other Brief History videos. You like ducks? We talk about the ducks. You can also follow us on Twitter at theory_central if you'd like to enlist in my small army. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to draft. Or consider supporting us on Patreon, like the incredible David W. and Alex Toquinto. Or Tohinto? Please let me know if I've been saying that wrong this entire time. But that is everything I plan to say today. So thanks for watching. I heard a rumor that Kai is working on a video. And we'll see you later.
Remember, gossip is always true.
Don't believe everything you hear and only half of what you read.